Welcome.
Welcome back. It's week 10. It's Zesty's Best Bets. We had a just under over 500 week, depending on when you got in on these lines, because a couple of our picks were real close. And if you followed the Steven Witkowski lightning round at the end, you got a couple winners, couple losers. But all in all, it was just a grinded out kind of week last week. We appreciate you following or fading. But we're right back into it this week. We're going to start with NFL as always, move on to college football. And your first pick on the sheet is the Baltimore under. It's at 38. That's the Cleveland Browns coming into Baltimore. And 38, awful low number. You think it'll still be under? Tell me why, Zesty.
Yeah. Last week I flirted with some referee totals. Some were spot on. Some were, I think, by design. I didn't necessarily mess around with referee assignments. This game specifically is just an NFC or AFC North slugfest. So the thought process, number one, I don't care who's playing quarterback for Cleveland. I think they're the same. I'd have to look back, but I think Vegas seems similar. Deshaun Watson is a name. He's not a line mover by any means.
Deshaun?
But
He's a habitual line stepper.
the idea is when these guys met in week 2 or 3 or whatever, it was a minute ago. The Ravens beat the doors off them. I think it was 20-3, which is impressive that now we know what Cleveland's defense is. The Ravens have the best plus minus scoring, most points scored, least points against. It's really easy to do when you're 80-6 over the last 2 weeks. They still lost to the Texans, I think. Texans or Colts, one of those teams, and the Steelers. I do think these guys are a dark horse, but I couldn't take the points, but I love betting teams that dominate a team coming into a week because there seems to always be a little bit of regression. I took the cop out, divisional opponent, 2 good defenses. Under 38 probably scares a lot of casual bettors. So I ended up with the under. I would lean maybe a first half Baltimore. I struggled to back the Browns because, one, I don't believe Deshaun is even capable of being a quarterback, and then his replacement is the same. They're both going to run the ball. The Ravens have scored so much because they've had explosive plays running the ball. It's not Lamar just throwing it around or they're just dominating. I think that gets nipped in the butt. I think it's going to be a punch you in the mouth game back and forth. It could mirror 28-3, 28-10. I don't think the Ravens are going to get the 28. I don't think the Browns are going to make up the total. I think it's going to be an old school kind of football game.
Betting public, what do you have to say about that? The Baltimore line right now, -6.5. So if it goes like Vegas goes and hits the under, that all checks out. Baltimore doesn't get to 28. Cleveland doesn't score a damn thing. And who is playing quarterback? Is it Deshaun this week?
Yeah, they got him
Yeah.
nice and massaged and ready to go. So
Yeah. He's the starter. Whether or not he can get more than one rep in, who knows what his stamina is. But
yeah, in terms of the under, I think right now the team totals are around 22 and 16, which is why the under is at 38. I see Baltimore having a lot more chance of getting 3+ touchdowns than I see Cleveland being able to get to 16. Baltimore's defense has just been playing really well, especially the past few weeks. They got really flexible coverages, and they do a lot of trickery, a lot of chicanery. So Watson hasn't played much in the past few weeks. We all know that he likes to avoid the film room and get into that massage room. So my thinking is that he won't be as prepared as he needs to be. And we're going to see the Ravens punish the Browns on defense. And I think that Baltimore actually covers the 6.5 points because I don't think that Cleveland's going to be able to do a damn thing. Just a little bit of fade one portion of my fantasy team and follow the other, since I have Lamar and I also have Amari Cooper. But I see the Ravens hitting the 6.5, and then Baltimore under 38. Fine pick by me because I think the Browns are just going to be under 12 points.
yeah, I don't think the massages are whether he shows up or not. He's got a lot of guaranteed money, whether he completes a pass or not. So I don't hate it. I hate to love to hate it, but he made his money. Like, why would you?
You think Deshaun Watson may not be fully invested in football like he was early on?
It's tough to do. You literally got life earnings, generational wealth over a signature. My shoulder. I wake up, my shoulder's all sorts of fucked up. Like I don't want to be tackled, freaked up.
That's hilarious. I mean, there's something to it, but I guess we've come to expect more from these generational type talents like Deshaun Watson. But
Maybe he's sick of Dabo. He's just trying to. I think Dabo was his coach. He's just trying to get back at him. All them struggles from Texans and Dabo. I can't trust. And we're going too far with Deshaun. I don't care if he's in or out. Like anytime I bet the Browns, it's not him at all because he doesn't move. He doesn't move the needle one way or the other.
has nothing to do with Deshaun. This is just about the Browns are gonna Brown, and the Ravens are actually decent. They should win this game by quite a few possessions and lock down the Browns. And like you said, they're just trying to run the ball, get the game over with as fast as they can. Same with Cleveland. That's just their MO. All right, moving on to this. We're still in the 11 o'clock window. San Francisco is headed down to Jacksonville, and you've got the Jags +3. You also have the under, which is 45.
Obviously, I would rather. My bigger play would be the total. So I feel really strong with the under. I think the 3 could potentially play to a push. I think Jacksonville. So if you listen to the media, everybody's like, "Oh, Debo's coming back." Oh, the last time they had Debo, they put up 45 against the Cowboys. They also had Trent Williams. They're not going to have Trent Williams today or Sunday. Excuse me. That has been a bigger hamper than Debo. Yes, Debo does alleviate and elevate Purdy a little bit. Jacksonville, their numbers don't say it, but they do play relatively decent defense. Same thing with like the Ravens we just spoke about. When you beat the brakes off of 2 teams in a row, your plus minus gets a little inflated. When you get your ass beat by the Texans, what was that, week 4, give or take? Trying to remember. Jacksonville has been very steady. I don't love everybody's like, oh, Jacksonville's good all of a sudden, because I think the line, truthfully, is probably inflated toward Jacksonville to where value is on the Niners, but value doesn't cash checks all the time. The key number, prove it. It's very possible that they're down 2, get in position, kick a field goal. The Niners, who have more value in theory, don't cover, or Jacksonville does enough and wins outright. So that's why I was saying that the total being under is my bigger play. I think the totals are hitting about 61% this year. I think this is a playoff-ish game. I don't see either one of these offenses getting crazy, even though it's not a standalone game, but this is about the only watchable game in theory on the slate. It's tough to I've seen 2.5 and I've seen 3.5, so it's get the better number for whatever side you choose. I personally have the home team with the field goal, but my bigger bet is the total under 45.
Betting public, you have the Niners on this one. I know that much. You also have the under as well. So tell me why you're opposite. Tell me why you have faith in Purdy Boy going on the road.
Yeah, it's not so much faith in Purdy Boy. I think in terms of the under, we're looking at both teams coming off a bye. That means extra time to prepare for the things that they're going to do on offense. So the tricks that Shanahan tries to pull to get guys running open in space, the Jaguars are going to have extra time to prepare for. So they're going to be able to do some of the same things that have confused Brock Purdy the past couple of weeks, and I think that's going to lead to less than 6 touchdowns in the game. So I think the under is pretty safe. I think because you have the 49ers coming off a bye, that total just gets pushed up too high. Probably should be realistically around 41 or 40, not 45. So I think that's a good bet. And then in terms of the line, I'm similar to the Zest here. I do have the 49ers -3. Not super amped on Samuel. I mean, he had a hairline fracture in his shoulder, so that smells a lot to me like one bad hit and you're back on the sideline, bud, because it seems like a pain tolerance thing. So the reason I take the 49ers here is mostly because they, to me, seem like they've been the more explosive offense consistently throughout the year rather than the Jaguars. And I think in order to cover, somebody here is going to be able to have to hit some big plays that are going to lead to some scores, whether it's, some big plays to McCaffrey or big plays to Samuel, or just getting Kittle wide open in the middle of the field, that the 49ers have more firepower and more ability to do that, which is why I'm comfortable laying the 3. But again, I'm more confident in the under and the total. But I'll take the 49ers and lay the 3 points.
You say 6 touchdowns. Just to throw a jab at you, how many plus yardage punts are there? So how many field goals need to reach a total? So when I cap a game, and I don't have the number, and I don't expect you to have the number either, but it's not touchdowns, which I'm not saying you are thinking that, but yes, the total is touchdown. How many times have we seen a game that Thursday night, for example, you know how many of those points were scored because the punter sucked? There was 17 of the 30 whatever. So literally half of the points were from special teams because it was 2 first downs or a first down led to points. I don't think this game falls into that. I think these teams are both very talented they know field position, but that's for the few listeners that might listen. Field position is a lot. First downs, third downs, just getting a couple third downs changes the field position, which lowers your scoring percentage like immensely. But if you play like the Jets last Monday, run 18 seconds off, don't punt, that's 3 points for the other team. And just putting the game together like that is kind of how I think of things. So, food for thought.
Yeah, no, I think we're pretty well aligned there. That's kind of what I was alluding to. Like the because it's at 45, that's what I mean when I say 6 touchdowns. So they got to score 6 touchdowns and then a field goal to hit the total, which means that if they're not scoring touchdowns on every drive, which I don't expect they will, then you're looking at like 6 or 7 scoring drives. And that I think is a lot, because whether it's a field goal or not, to your point about field position, you're going to have 3 first downs, 4 first downs, 5 first downs in a drive to be able to get down to a point where you're able to convert a field goal or get a touchdown. And that's not something you can usually do consistently through a game unless you're just dominating the other team. And with both defenses coming off a bye, that's where I just feel like the defenses have the edge. So
I agree 100% without bogging down it. That's why explosive plays are so in the algorithm of the bets, which I won't. That's when you get a punt return, that's almost 14 points because it's such an explosive play. It's not expected, or a defensive touchdown. It's not 14 points. Don't go and assume that, but that
We
is
can
why
do math.
that's why it's so explosive. In right after a defensive touchdown, if you do have the under, there's value, is what I'm trying to get to. But go ahead, Mr. Moderator.
Moving on. I don't think we spent enough time on Jacksonville and San Francisco. We've got the Minnesota money line. You like Minnesota versus New Orleans. It's a home game. You also like the under. That number's at 41. That line is currently Minnesota's getting the home dog love. Plus 2.5 is where I have it right now, home. So, personally, I'm liking all these home dogs. I always like, feel comfortable betting on some home dog love. Yeah. I don't know. Tell me why I wouldn't bet on the. I guess you're going to tell me why I should bet on the Vikings.
So unless I looked at it wrong, I think they're a road dog. But I don't know that for sure.
No, Minnesota's at home.
Oh, okay. The thought process with Minnesota is roll the tape back. I can't trust Derek Carr. I know who Derek Carr is. He's a statistician. The Saints defense does travel. They do play good D. I get why the line's there. Everybody's talking about Dobbs, like, oh, he came in and he didn't even know the playbook. Now he's going to know the playbook. Everybody's going to be about it. He is a astronaut. He is a rocket engineer. He doesn't need a lot of time, no playbooks. I think he's been in 7 teams, 7 playbooks in 42 weeks. I am very certain he's probably mastered every bit of them. The terminology in the NFL doesn't change too much. Like I know, but I'm just, you got your West Coast, I listened to a podcast that Eli Manning was the first. He said Omaha before Peyton. And then Eli said he stole it from Tom Brady, from the Patriot. So the terminology doesn't change much, but when we hear Omaha, we think Peyton Manning, Omaha. When you're running route concepts, to my best of knowledge, I don't want to look like an idiot, but it's relatively similar, whether it's this to that. But he is a astronaut to be. NASA. He was an intern at NASA, so he definitely is high IQ, like Fitzmagic that we used to love way back when. The defense isn't going to confuse him. They're not going to get him off script. Whether or not Minnesota has the horses on defense to expose Derek Carr is my concern a little bit. But of the dogs, this honestly is the only one of the Sunday slate that I would actually bet money line. And I just think they do enough. Kind of talked about the total. Minnesota's defense is still wishy-washy, kind of, but New Orleans isn't very good on offense. Watch them throw it up, but this easily could be a 21-17 kind of game, one way or the other. Like I said, the unders are cashing quite a bit. Have at it, public.
Yeah, I'm laying the points here with the Saints at -3. The thing with Dobbs that worries me about the total is, one, everything that you said about him being the smartest motherfucker in the room is absolutely true. And two, he's one hell of an athlete. So he can make plays to convert a third down if Minnesota can get into reasonable situations, and that can extend drives. So that's where I feel like Minnesota can get enough points to threaten that total. And the Saints, because Minnesota's defense has been so wildly inconsistent throughout the year, I think have a chance to push into the mid to high 20s. So that's why I think that they're worth laying the 3 points against. I get that Dobbs went and kicked ass down in Atlanta on literally no notice and no rest, but the Falcons are a whole nother fucking conundrum down there in the ATL. So I can't explain why Arthur Smith doesn't believe in giving the ball to his fucking offensive weapons. But what I know is Dennis Allen will put the ball in Derek Carr's hands and be like, throw it to Olave, Kamara, and our other playmakers. And they'll just do that over and over and over and over again. So to me, this is worth laying the 3 points with the Saints.
I do agree with you. Our boy from the region, Jaron Hall, damn near led a touchdown drive before he got his head cut off.
R.I.P. Sorry, Jaron.
So yes, I think the hype is here, but I also think the Saints are like here and should be.
Saints are as Alvin Kamara goes.
Defense travels. That's my concern. But Skull.
One final comment. Tell me this. If the Falcons hadn't falconed so hard last week and actually did what they were fucking supposed to, this line would be Saints by 6 or more. Right or wrong?
I don't think it'd be that high, but no, it would not be. It'd probably be more 3.5. It's tough to, because to your point, yes, 6. But now you're saying, in theory, the Saints at home are 9.5 points better. So that's kind of what I think of, which is not the case. It would be more like maybe
I follow you, yeah.
6.5, maybe 7. You might get to a 7.5. So yes, there is value on the Saints, and there's trends to the Saints, but usually if you know the trends and you're not like divulging into the trends, it's by design. So right or wrong, I had a terrible weekend last weekend, but Skull.
Let's go. Moving on to Los Angeles with the Chargers. We got the Detroit Lions coming to town, and you're on the under again. Under's 41.5. That's what you got it at? Or that's what it was when we checked. And betting public, I know you're on Detroit Lions -3 here on the road. So at a home dog with the Chargers. Tell me why you like the under, Cody.
Yeah, it's not following the trend by any means that unders are hitting 61.5, I think now. This is a playoff game, especially for the Chargers. The Lions, they have a little easier path that they can potentially afford a slip up. The Chargers were just on prime time, and truthfully, they looked as about as terrible as you can. It dominated the game, and still you wonder what the hell. I'm a huge Lions fan, or as far as betting wise, a Lions fan. So I'm conflicted on the side. The public will convince me otherwise, but what I'm getting at is anytime they've played anybody of caliber, the total's gone under. Everybody wants to think the Chargers is high flying, they're slinging it around, scoring touchdowns. They're down 2 receivers. The tight end, Parham, would be a good bet for an anytime touchdown. I don't have it listed, but they only have so many other people. Herbert didn't throw for a touchdown. The Jets defense is, I won't say elite, but above average. But Detroit's defense isn't elite, but above average. On the other side, they're going to be able to control the ball. Montgomery's coming back. It doesn't really funnel in other than the moderators.
Yeah, other than fucking me.
This game could go way over or way under. That's it. And I know that's vague as can be, but you're not gonna be like, oh, what's the total? Oh, it's 20, 23, and the touchdown here is gonna push it over. It's literally gonna go under at halftime or gonna be probably over at halftime. So I removed myself from the side because the Chargers hate me. So I think it's going to be a defensive game. What say you, public?
Yeah, I know. The Chargers, man. I don't know what to make of that team. They looked terrible last week, but the Jets just tried to make them look good no matter what. Zach Wilson's pretty good at that, so can't really read into much in that 27-6 matchup. But I go back to the prior 2 weeks where they did actually play some teams that are worth the shit, and they put up 17 in both of those weeks. So I think we're going to see a similar thing here between them and the Lions. Detroit's defense, again, not stellar maybe, but is certainly not poor as well. So I see Detroit getting after Herbert, taking advantage of some situations with the running game and the passing game, with the Chargers being a little out of balance because they are down some receivers. So I am willing to lay the 3 points with Detroit, having a little bit of faith on Goff coming back to a stadium that he's familiar with, which will hopefully help ease some of the Jared Goff on the road struggles that have historically happened. So I'll lay the 3 points with Detroit. Hopefully Jahmyr Gibbs does everything that you need there, moderator Steven. since you're not fucking playing me this week. But we shall see.
So to that,
But guess who I am playing? I'm playing the Zest.
Oh shit!
hey, look,
Well,
look it
never
up.
mind then. Never mind then. I hope Jahmyr Gibbs scares the bejesus out of fucking San Diego, and they go play action to my boy Jameson Williams a couple times over the top, and that's how they cover.
Oh, no love for the top of the league.
So the Jared Goff slander, and I'm probably fan club number one. He's actually, I don't have the stats, but I bet that he's actually done really well on the road where he really struggles when it's cold. Last time I checked, South California is not too terribly cold. I waffled on the total. That's why I didn't take it. That's why I don't think it's moved either which way. But I do think Detroit's the better team. The Chargers have the better quarterback, but he's down so much at home. The Chargers don't have home. It's going to be a Lions home game. Even the Lions are going to be home in SoCo. So yeah, I agree with you a lot. I don't love to agree with you, but I think you nailed it quite a bit on this game.
Well, I don't even like agreeing
I
with
don't know,
me,
man.
so I understand that.
I don't know. Never like to go against the home dog. I like me a home dog. But you guys are right. I don't know that Chargers are a home dog. They're not at home. SoFi is not really a home to them. It still hasn't worked out like that. There might be more Detroit fans in LA right now than there are Chargers fans showing up to that game.
There certainly are
Moving
now.
on.
The strike's over, so they're all coming back.
Like I said,
Yeah.
I've said it at least 2 weeks in a row. I'll say it a third week in a row. The Lions have the better coach. I cannot trust Staley for anything. He would if I was an owner, he would have been fired like after the Cowboys game. But I don't have that kind of money yet.
Moving on, you got the Seattle under to round out your NFL picks. Well, that's not true. You got a couple bonus as well, but Seattle under is at 44.5. They're playing your Commanders this week. So that makes sense why you'd be on the low number there. But explain it to me in the betting public before we jump in.
Look, before you get into some slander, they've been putting up some points. Howell is looked like a competent quarterback. The play from my thought process is they're traveling east to west, different time zones. It is a later start, which would be an early start for them. Seattle just got embarrassed. They just got punked by the Ravens. They're not going to let another Bay Area crab cakes come in and dominate them. To that, they rush the passer really well. Howell, bless his heart, he's not quite Shedeur Sanders level of completion percentage that he just wants to hold on to it, but He saw the field really well against the Patriots. He was out and about. The Patriots are the Patriots. They're not. I've lost too much money on the Patriots. Well, not too much money, but Seattle has the secondary and the pass rush that there's going to probably cause some issues. Washington traded away two of their ends, but most of their pass rush was from the interior. They still have those guys. It's going to boost anybody who's on the outside. And it's Geno Smith. Everybody fell in love with Geno Smith. The benefit of Geno Smith was the running game. They're not going to be able to run the ball too effectively. I mean, they're, long story short, the Commanders' strength is stopping the run. They're going to make it ugly. Seattle knows that. They're just going to win the game. They very well could cover, but it could be a 17-14, or, well, they wouldn't cover then. It could be 23-14 kind of game and cover the under. Make sure I did the math correctly there. But public.
Rich Jinx alert. 3 weeks in a row. Fucking chicken shit yet again. How about you bet on your team?
With the under?
Fucking
Hey.
bastard.
What's my record?
Yeah. Horse shit. And I failed last week to call this out because obviously when you identified that the lead referee was 7-0 for the home team, you absolutely fucking knew that Goodell was getting on the horn and was like, motherfucker, you go 8-0. You will not fucking referee another game this year. So I am tired of fucking hearing this shit. You better fucking make sure those commies win. So that's our bad for not putting the finger out and feeling where the wind was blowing on that one. But in terms of the under here, I mean, 2 horseshit teams. So yeah, where are they going to score more than 6 touchdowns? I tend to agree with that.
Copy.
There was too much
Yeah.
slander involved in that analysis. But I like it.
Yeah, because it's not slanderous. It's just too much truth-based. All right. Public, you've got a pick here. It's a 7:30 game in Germany. The Deutschland start. You want the Colts -2 and the under 43. Tell me why you like the Colts over the Pats in Deutschland. Belichick's never lost overseas.
Well, previously they played in London, which the Patriots have fared far better in London historically than they have in Germany. So I will ride it out with this one. Not so much
You
for
talking
the
about history?
historical context, but more so because the Colts are just a better team. Their running game is going to tear the Patriots up, and I think that they keep the ball for a significant amount of time throughout this one. Patriots are going to find out have a hard time scoring against the Colts as well. So I'm on the Colts laying 2 points over in Frankfurt, and I will take the under as well because I don't think old McCorkle's going to be able to get it going this week. Under's at 43.
What say you, Zesty?
Yeah, no action. I do love the under. International games typically go under. Technically, it's a standalone game.
We try to do our best to sell the game to them over there and kick a lot of field goals. That's what they want to see.
Yeah, and technically, like I said, it's a standalone game, and I think that's like 80 and 50, if not better. But it's plus 60%. However, I don't have a side on it, but I would disagree that I would take the Patriots to win for kind of the same reasons he said. The problem is the Patriots can run the ball, but they don't run the ball. So I think they're adamantly losing. And if we know anything about Bill Belichick, he's really good at cheating. I think he is potentially cheating to lose. This is why I didn't bet any bit of it. Like statistically, he must just hate Mac Jones, and he's just like F off.
Hot off the press.
And
Belichick's tossing the year, tossing the season because he hates Mac Jones.
yeah, because he's chasing Shula, and there's no way they're going to be like, oh, hey, eat a banana. We're not going to allow you to come back. Like, there's got to be some kind of conversation going on that what's happening versus personnel is completely different. So,
yeah. I agree with you that if I were betting this game, it's probably going to be on the Pats getting a little love. Technically another home dog, even though they're off in Germany. But yeah, I would probably bet the under. Safest bet, again, international game. Just the travel alone can take off some points there. And these are two of the worst offenses in the league. Now that Richardson's out of there, Gardner Minshew, the mustache, has proven himself as to be just as mediocre as it gets in the NFL. You know, really below average. So, moving on, I guess you do have a couple more bonus NFL picks with you've got a couple more unders. You've got the Green Bay versus Pittsburgh under. It's at 38. And another AFC North Cincinnati under. And they're at home against Houston. And that under's 47, a little higher because I expect them to put up some points for sure, at least themselves. Tell me about both those unders, maybe at the same time with Pittsburgh at home versus Green Bay. That number again is a little lower with 38, and then Cincinnati's under is at 47. Go ahead, Zesty.
yeah, so the last, I think 4 weeks, the Packers I think about 16 points a game is what they're allowing. Pittsburgh, I've paid a little bit of attention. They're scoring about 16 and a half points because if anybody paid attention, LeBron James mentioned they're outscored, outgained, and they're still over 500, which obviously is not possible. what he probably meant was they are outscored in every game. They're outscored for excuse me, let me not. They're outscored total for the year. But if you get blown out, it doesn't matter. It's one game. It's an isolated incident. Where's the points coming from? You're telling me Jordan Love's gonna dice up Pittsburgh, the defense that is 31st in the league? Not likely. And they're 31st in the league because their offense sucks and they're on the field so much. They continue to get the pressure rate acceptable or turnovers. And then hell, if it's close in the fourth quarter, they win and close it out. That's what they do. It's not beautiful. But the Packers don't do anything beautiful either. Outside of, I don't have the numbers, but if you were to eliminate the Bears game week 1 where they put up 38 points, they're probably worse or equal to the Steelers and have a worse record. The Packers defense is the key here. They play really acceptable defense, I guess. The rest of it's pretty common knowledge with anybody watching the Steelers. They hate themselves and they want to. Najee Harris should retire. And Warren is explosive. And Pickett is not an NFL quarterback. The slander is there, moderator, but they physically
here.
They physically cannot do
He's
it.
not an NFL quarterback. I've seen enough out of his ass. He's not going to be the one. He might get away with being an NFL quarterback a little bit longer, but they need to get him out of there as soon as possible because he looks lost out there far too often. And he's too late into his career. I know it's still technically early, but he should be a lot less uncomfortable than he is. Constantly uncomfortable. That's the only way I would describe him. I mean, I would still take Pittsburgh at home 3.5 here, but Pittsburgh's greatest strength, their best offense even, is their defense this year. So I'd hit that under. I'd hit that prop with the Pittsburgh defense scoring a touchdown. You know, I would not expect Green Bay to do anything crazy, but also I could see them. I could see them beating Pittsburgh just on the fact that Pittsburgh just cannot figure out their offense. I don't understand it.
That's the reverse jinx. I'm hoping somebody's team wins. The defensive prop, I don't hate. Like I said, I don't. Green Bay is not explosive, is what I'll leave it at. So there's a very good possibility that strip sack, pick six. So
we're on to Cincinnati. I just had to say it. We're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's a good one. what is it, 47? What I have with that? Yeah.
Yeah, 47. 6.5 is the line.
So the idea is this spoiler leads into my player prop, which I didn't know this, but player prop and side bets and totals are all the same. So it's literally another bet. Cincinnati, the defensive coordinator, I can't say his name, but it starts with Ariama or Ariama or something. He is very heavily zone based, which he's going to allow his front to get there, and then he wants 7 people back. His front 4 is going to beat up the Texans. The Texans are a good story. I think CJ Stroud's a good quarterback. I don't know the pressure rate for them, but that is the weakness. They don't run the ball very well. Obviously, that's why the quarterback is not the weakness. Wide receivers really aren't the weakness either. The reason I bet it as such is Cincinnati. Everybody thinks Cincinnati points the first 4 weeks, 5 weeks. They were the bottom, at least 5, if not the bottom of scoring offensively. I know Burrow was dealing with the calf, so that's hit or miss, which didn't play into this. It's they can play a game, they can confine a game, and I don't think what's the total? Not the total, but the side. What was it? 3.5, 4?
No, it's 6.5.
6.5. Okay.
Big number.
Yeah, that's why I took the under.
No, I mean that's a lot of points for them to cover.
Both of the receivers are on the list. I think that both will probably play, but
I heard Higgins is out.
Yeah, Higgins is out.
okay. Well, that had nothing to do with my assumption, but if it hits, I'll say, "Oh yeah, Higgins," was a big part of it. But the biggest part of why I capped it this way is the defensive coordinator. He gets pressure with 4, and you can see it. And CJ Stroud does good against his own. But
Then why did you bet that prop under 249?
that's what I'm saying. No, I misspoke then. He struggles on the road. This is where I was going to segue to. He lost to Carolina and looked lost on the road. This defense is better. Rest my case.
I see. Well, public, I know you're on the Houston Texans here, plus 6.5. Tell me why Houston does not have a problem.
Yeah, so I'm on the under as well, and not laying the points. Sorry, taking the points at plus 6.5. Bengals offense is less consistent when they don't have all their receivers healthy. So with Higgins being out, I see them struggling a little bit more to score. And then the Texans, because the Bengals will be at a low number, the Texans defense, keeps them in the game. And Stroud, I think, can do enough to keep them within a touchdown. and keep this to a point where it's a one-score game, or I think what is also highly likely here is that the Bengals have a lead, maybe by 10 or so at the end of the game, and there's a late score to cover. I just think that's the 6.5 feels a little inflated to me. That's where I put the line more if the Bengals are fully healthy. They had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins not dealing with the issues they are, but with them on the injured list, this is going to be tough for Cincinnati.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting 2 Bengals now, so again, as far as fantasy goes and the matchup that's going on between 2 of our co-hosts this week, very interested to see and how all this plays out. Moving on now, the only 2 NFL games that I have on our sheet that we haven't touched are some more betting public picks. You believe that Dallas is going to cover all 17 points against the Giants. And tell me why that's not just a complete homer bet.
2 words. Tommy DeVito.
No,
Sure it's not
Bacon DeVito.
Sure it's
Is it
not
just
Danny.
because his name's Vito?
It's not Danny DeVito.
I don't give a fuck who it might as well be Mike the Situation, whatever the fuck his last name is. Like, no shot.
So this is anti-Italian slander. I won't have that here.
I have nothing against any Italians whatsoever. That being said, DeVito looked like absolute fucking trash in the game that he did have to come in and play. Giants are just in complete disarray right now. And Dallas, as you know, the Zest has pointed out on previous episodes of the pod, when they win, they beat your ass. So this is a game they're going to win. This is a game they're going to beat the Giants' ass. They're going to get Stephen A. back on Monday telling people that they're getting teased again, which they are. The Eagles tried like hell to give Dallas that game last week, which is as we both predicted. But Dallas just said, you know what? It's way fucking cooler if you miss out on touchdowns by an inch and miss a 2-point conversion by stepping out of bounds like a clown fucker. So that's our preference. Fuck you, Eagles. We will not win this game. And that was incredibly disappointing to watch. But Dallas rebounds here. The Giants are just not worth anything. And this is where Dallas goes off again. Like, you watch, Pollard will actually have a big game against the Giants because they've been going to CD so often. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to be scared shitless of that. So Pollard will go off a couple times for some big runs.
Yeah. I was equally disappointed. Yeah, this is what the Cowboys do. There's 0 chance I can back the 17, even though it's an ungodly number, even in the NFL. I hope they lose outright because they fucking deserve it. Freaking deserve it. But yeah, the reason the line is so large is they know they're going to get flooded with it. Everybody thinks Danny DeVito starting at quarterback. Doesn't matter if it was Daniel Jones. Obviously, the line would be different.
But how different would it be? -10?
No, I don't think he's that big of a difference.
I know, me either. I'm like, it's probably still be at least 13.
Yeah, but I still think that's an inflated number. That being said, as a bookmaker, and I'm not a bookmaker, you can't be like, oh yeah, Cowboys by 30, because everybody's gonna be like, oh yeah, no, they're not gonna win by 30 because they're the Cowboys, or they're just gonna be not by 30. Like back to Arizona when they lost outright. Like I said, the 17 is crazy. Yeah, show that belt. You're not showing it very well, but there's zero chance I could back the Giants in any aspect. I mean, they had a victory against Zach Wilson and shit the bed. They just cannot score. And then Tommy DeVito, he's a Syracuse quarterback, and he could barely score consistently in the ACC. So, reluctantly, I agree. God bless if you actually do back a huge number. That's crazy. I would just select a different bet, or maybe a different side, or a personal total. Like if you're so high on Mr. Pollard, maybe 2 touchdowns would be better than the points, but
I'm on the Giants. I don't think I it's just so many points. So many points. And I agree with the sentiment of, hey, this is that type of game. If the Cowboys win, they win big. But what about when they don't win big and they blow dick? How about that?
Yeah.
It happens a lot more often.
What was the first matchup? 50-0, 40-something-0, or
40 to
40.
nothing.
Yeah. You remember it. A lot of people remember it. They're like, oh, 17 million shit. That's what I'm getting at in the points. I'm not going to back it, but the points are pretty astronomical, and they're creeping up. So
Yeah.
there is some liability somewhere, but
I believe that's all we have for the NFL, folks. There's a couple more home dogs. We don't have any action on them, but Arizona's a home dog. You got Atlanta coming into Arizona for the return of Kyler Murray. I don't know. They're a home dog for a reason. I don't know if the return of Kyler Murray is enough to turn anything around in Arizona. They're just lost. Another game we don't have action on, or we didn't mention, is the Jets and the Raiders. Another home dog, the Raiders. Home dog against the Jets. And that tells you everything you need to say. I just think if I'm putting money on that game at all, it's on the Raiders, just because they're getting a point at home, and I want to see if the cigars stay rolling a couple weeks. Who better than the Jets to come to town to extend that? But they may be in a place where they are not ready to go for this game, and the Jets come in and sneak out a win. Tell me what your thoughts are, Zesty.
to that, show me how big your balls are, or your betting preferences are. Coaches, interim coaches. So you're fired, you hired, you win. 0-7, straight up against the spread, which I don't believe, that's why I don't have any money on it, but
Interim coaches all time, 0-7. What was that?
not all time, but
It's after a win. Like if they win their
yeah,
first game after,
After a win,
then
0-7.
after that win.
yeah.
I see.
Like the smoke dissipates. I don't necessarily believe that's the case.
I mean, it's the Jets.
Yeah, but the Jets do. If you were to eliminate the quarterback, they do a lot of things better than the Raiders at home or on the road. So I didn't touch it. I'm rooting for the Raiders. The fact that it was -1 at home, which tells me they're technically at least a point and a half worse. But Zach Wilson versus
Josh Jacobs.
yeah, well, honestly, it turns into Large Farva, Aiden O'Connell versus Zach Wilson. We all know who Zach Wilson is, but they won games despite of him. So I do see regression, but I ain't touching him. I don't think there's any value in it. But one way or the other, like it'd be great to talk about, but like
We've got other bets for a reason. Let's move on to the college slate and give the people what they want. The college lightning round.
oh,
Do you want me to get you started on your first picks on that? Because your first pick listed would be Washington State. And then you've got Wazoo +1, a Utah over, USC over, Minnesota +1, Tennessee over. You got all kind. You're all over the board on Saturday.
yeah, it's
Or I guess your first one would have been Georgia -10.5. If you want to start there with Georgia, that's the big game.
yeah. So I'm gonna contradict myself or counterdict myself.
Contradict, but
Counter
you're all good.
counterdict myself.
Contradict yourself. That sounds painful.
So Georgia, or excuse me, Ole Miss +10.5. We got at least 70% of the bets. Michigan, Michigan -4.5. That's about the same. So when bets of, we'll call it 70% because I can't remember the exact total. Not very good. So that's good for the Georgia bet. Everybody loves Ole Miss. Everybody wants to back the dog to beat the dogs. To that, everybody wants to bet Michigan to beat Penn State until Franklin shows me he can beat anybody worth a darn, I'm going to fade him. Their defense is good. That's why I have the total under. Hardball issues or not, I don't care. I think I just read he can't be on the sidelines, but he can be at practice. So you're telling me he can't tell his coaches some stuff?
If they've cheated like they already have, what's going to stop them from maneuvering around this fucking punishment?
Yeah. So we'll knock out the two first. So Georgia minus 10.5. Georgia's rolling. They're going to beat the brakes, or should say that lightly. Everybody loves Ole Miss all the time. They're like, they're the next one that can be. They're the old Auburn that never won a championship.
Now that you say that, that's true. It's every so often though. Like, is it the red, white, and blue color scheme? Like, what? Why does everybody fall in love with Ole Miss so often when they let us down so often and they've never done anything great?
Yeah, this is a huge buyback on Georgia. They're going to control everything about the game. Ole Miss is not going to stop them. That's why I have the over as well. There's a good chance that they do score on Georgia. Maybe. But they didn't score against Alabama, and we all think Alabama's shit this year, but everybody went into that game thinking, hey, this is the year Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. It's because he's charismatic. Georgia minus 10, over 58.5. Michigan, Penn State, Franklin. So the two programs have essentially alternated home loss wins. Penn State does have a good defense. They're at home. This Michigan team, believe it or not, they've got to prove it, might be better than or not better, but have more Sunday players, NFL drafted players, than the national championship Georgia team. You got to put it together, but I think McCarthy is better than Stetson Bennett, which was Georgia's quarterback. And Penn State at home, it's going to be now. I can put this into my assumption. What a rally game that Harbaugh's suspended for 3 games. F it. Let's dominate people, and he can coach us in the national championship game, or the semis when he gets blown out by Georgia or whoever he plays. Penn State is not that team, so that's why I have them there. It opened at 6.5, I think, 2 weeks ago. It got down to 4.5. Harbaugh news as of this evening hasn't changed it. So Harbaugh doesn't move the line. 4.5 is not a great line to back, but I think Michigan's that much better. But I think both defenses are that good that I don't think they're gonna, Big Ten football, they're not gonna score. Public, you got anything?
Got
Yeah, I
any action
agree.
on Georgia?
I agree with the the Dogs pick as well. I just think Ole Miss is a little too hyped on offense. They're going to struggle against Georgia. Georgia's defense is getting right at the right time, starting to play like the last two previous Georgia defenses a little bit more than they have early on in the season. And old Carson Beck, he of two last names, has been looking quite good throwing at the young lad, McConkey. So even though they don't have Mr. Brock Bowers over the middle, they got another white guy that they have in Georgia who's also a great athlete. So I think that they smash Kiffin and run away with that at home. That's another big thing to me is you got Ole Miss going in between the hedges, and that's an environment that they're going to have a tough time dealing with. And apparently they got some kids with some weak-ass mental health on their team, so that's going to be even tougher for them. In terms of the Michigan game, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I just think Michigan is a better team than Penn State overall. They're even more hyped and animated for this game because of the suspension and all the allegations of cheating and all that kind of stuff. So we saw they had the Michigan versus everybody t-shirts, which I agree are silly and stupid. But, you know, when you're 18 to 22-year-olds, silly and stupid can be the thing that puts your ass in the film room for a couple extra hours a week and gets you a little hyped on game day. So I'm not having any problem back in Michigan in that game.
I'm on Penn State. Fuck the cheaters.
All right, I'll not necessarily do a rapid fire, but so I've got Washington Huskies -9.5. As of this evening, it was -8. So I'm on the bad side of things. But what people don't know, and people do know, but I know what Utah is on the road. Just because they held ASU to 50 or less than 60 yards, we'll say. Show up in Washington and do that. Washington has national title aspirations. Not that they're not going to not show up, but they know damn well if they lay an egg against Utah or don't. I mean, that's what college football is. Like, you've got to prove against a team that truthfully is on the rankings underranked in Utah. Utah power rankings should be elevated about 7 spots, give or take. So this is the perfect time to show out. Everybody, in my opinion, thinks, oh, they played Caleb Williams really well. Washington's different. They play defense. They run the ball. They can do a bunch of shit. USC sucks. Literally, outside of having a lot of good recruits and allegedly the greatest quarterback ever to play college football, nothing special. I feel
Man, did you hear Tony Gonzalez just over complimenting the shit out of Caleb Williams last night on Thursday Night Football postgame?
No, everybody wants Caleb to be the next guy. He's talented, but I don't know if he is the next guy. I'm not.
I mean, they
calling
were
him
talking
out.
about we've been hearing he's the next Patrick Mahomes. He said that on the fucking broadcast. I'm like, shut up, dude. Like,
Yeah,
we just not don't put that on anyone.
I agree. It's not his fault. he does what he needs to do. The entire squad around him is terrible. I think hell, I can't even remember the coach's name at the moment, but he's trying to suckle the teat from Caleb Williams to get go. I've got the worst number. Washington by double digits. 9.5 still does cover. I guess we'll stay in the same state. Never mind. So Colorado plus 10 against Arizona. So Arizona has been my darling, and Colorado has been the opposite of my darling of bets. Like I've bet against them, I guess. So they're still my darlings on the other side. I think this is a good buyback for Colorado. I don't love it. I love the number, but at some point, the overhype of Colorado comes back to underhype, and I think or hope this is the case. I went back and forth on it, but obviously that's where I laid it. I think Arizona might be a little. That's where I struggled. Is Arizona actually overhyped? Like, is everybody a degenerate like me and actually watch Arizona and know how good they are, or is it a good buyback for Arizona? So I went with Colorado because I faded them quite a bit. I don't think they win at all. I just think they kind of played the same thing they did at Oregon State last week. Garbage touchdown to cover. What do you think, public?
I just want to say before public gets into it, we were touching on it before you hopped in into the group chat today, just because as I was doing my preparation, I thought it was interesting you liked Colorado here, knowing your comments from last week where how much you thought Arizona actually did look good and you liked what you saw from Arizona. I tend to like Arizona minus 10 here. But tell me what you think, public.
Yeah, I'm on the same side of you here, moderator. I like the Wild Kitties at minus 10. I also like the under at 54.5. I think Arizona's a talented squad and don't see this playing out into a high-scoring matchup. 10 is a lot for them to lay on the road. If this was in Arizona, I think I'd be far more inclined to go that route. But Colorado, I don't have a lot of faith in them yet to be able to really be competitive in the Pac-12 week over week because they do have such deficiencies on both lines. So that's where I see them having a problem here. They'll have a tough time scoring and then tough time stopping the Arizona run game. So Arizona to me has far better chance of covering here.
Do you have money on do you have a bet on Utah versus Washington?
Yeah, I'm on the side of the Huskies there as well. I wrote it down at 8.5, which is where it's now. And then I actually took the under 50. So I know Big Zest was thinking the points were going to run up on this one. When Oregon and Washington played, I think the final score was 27-24, which would have just barely hit that 49 mark and would have been under 50. I think that Utah's defense is strong enough that they can similarly hold Washington to the mid to high 20s, even on the road. I don't know that I see Utah's offense, though, putting up enough points to hit that over. So that's why I ended up on the side of the Huskies and the under there.
So to add to that, I've got an exclamation point to it. I'm on the fence. And the reason I'm on the fence, hear me out. Well, I like Washington. The total dropped, which doesn't benefit that. But what if Utah does just enough? What if they do some of their weird ass Whittingham stuff? What if it is 20-20 a half? Like now, do we not agree 20-20 is very possible? I don't. I think it'd be.
I don't know about 20-20 a half, but I lean towards the Utes here. I think 8 is a big number.
College.
And
8 in college is not a big. It's a number, but go ahead. Sorry.
I can maybe phrase that wrong. It's not necessarily the biggest number. But again, this is just like I said last week, it's a Pac-12 game late in the year, and the Utes defense travels well. It could just be them, like you said, just doing just enough to where it might not be 20-20 and a half, but with some good field position, with some good special teams play on both sides of it by the Utes, maybe it's 10-10 at half with the potential there to go, just by the nature of the Utes, oftentimes looking very pedestrian on offense. And the Huskies maybe just off to a slow start because of that Utes defense, That being said, 10-10, probably, if it does happen like that, I would expect that to be the lower scoring half, because I do expect these teams to figure it out, and I would expect the Washington Huskies to lay some points on at some point in this game. But, I don't think it's going to be like run and gun the whole game. I think the defenses will settle in, if not early, later. Because they're both strong on defense, too.
Like, I don't disagree, but I do. I disagree. I actually think this is going to be
shootout.
If I could,
Big 12 look.
If I
could, they
could,
don't have any defense.
If I could amend my bets, and I might not even document it and amend it, but I think the first half over covers, and the reason being is, so Washington struggled against one of the Oregon or Arizona teams. I can't remember because I had a few adult beverages, but I was watching it and they struggled. The theory is in a scope. I'm thinking, or I'm overthinking maybe. But now I'm overthinking my overthinking. But everybody doesn't think Utah can score. That doesn't mean Washington's stopping people. We just had a 100-point game with USC. albeit Caleb Williams, nobody played defense. Washington's perfectly comfortable in that. They're going to press it. That doesn't mean they're going to stop Utah from scoring. Utah might slow Washington, but they're not the juggernaut on defense that Utah could easily, like I said, honestly, I'll go on record. I would not be shocked if it's 20-20 at half. And I'm not.
I would be, but only because this is when Utah's assholes just tighten up. When they have to go in and they know they're going to have to put up points, and with the exception of USC, which this year can't stop a nosebleed, this is where their assholes tighten up. They get conservative. They start doing dumb shit on third down. And you watch our group chat is going to light up this weekend with, same damn Utah, conservative. Witt won't throw the ball, even though Barnes looked like he kind of got it going last week against Arizona State. They're on the road now. They're going to tighten up. Whittingham's going to freak out. They won't score.
See, I think they tighten. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I think they tighten up on games that they're supposed to win. They're not supposed to win this game. So they're going to be balls out. They're going to let it rain. They're going to get crazy with it. Washington has the firepower to overcome it. I'll take a bet. Utah has a 7-point lead for a substantial part of the game. Substantial can be, regulated to some terms, but I bet you they have a 7-point lead in this game for at least 5 minutes.
I am always more confident in the Utes as an underdog. That's for sure.
Yeah. They're going to come out, and I'm just getting my shoulder workout in. I'm not doing anything, too crazy. They're going to come out, probably punch Washington in the mouth. And the Utah defense is a product of their offenses sometimes. I'm not saying their defense isn't good. I'm just saying when you look at betting the totals like we are, good defenses give up a lot of points too. It's just that's where we rest on the total. Like I said, it's going to be a hot take because I don't believe it's going to happen, but I would not be shocked if the total was damn near reached at halftime. I don't believe that's the case, but the majority of the points can be scored in the first half as well. I don't think it's going to be a Washington heavy bet to cover points. Like I said, I think Washington gets 35 plus, and I think Utah 20 plus. When and how they get them, that's how I see it. And sportsmanship or not, Washington's trying to play for a national championship. So if they can get an extra touchdown, they're probably going to do it. If they're capable of doing it. I mean, like I said, I'm not shitting on Utah's defense. It's just they're traveling. All it takes is a couple third downs if they don't succeed, and then all of a sudden Utah has no control of the game. They're throwing it around. They're USC with the defense. So
Well, let's keep it right in the Pac-12 and talk about the SC Oregon over. That's on the sheet as well.
Yeah, I see Public's got him 77. I got him 75. This is about 3 weeks, 4 weeks going. If the total is over 58, USC covers it. Doesn't matter what it is, which is crazy. I do think Oregon is going to do one or two things. They're going to lose outright, or they're just going to beat the brakes off of them. Kind of Notre Dame-esque. So I love the total, in fact, of I know what's going to happen, but can USC actually pretend to be USC that we know of? Oregon's going to want to beat the brakes off of them. So, like I said, the total.
Public, you're on them plus 16. What do you got to say about it?
Yeah, so
You're
you
on
guys were
SC.
you guys were talking about the Utah and Washington game being late season Pac-12. This is when shit hits the fan in the Pac-12 and they fuck themselves out of the playoff, right? I actually think this is that game. With USC hanging close and maybe winning outright here and getting Oregon into a track meet, and finally we see Bo Nix do some stupid shit. And that to me is what this screams right here, with SC being a heavy underdog. That's my thinking here is Pac-12 chaos is found with the Ducks and the Trojans this weekend.
I don't really disagree. Like I said, very possible win outright or get the brakes blowing off. But I tend to agree with you. I wouldn't lay 16. I think Oregon's good, but like you said, the Pac-12 cannibalizes themselves. And the fact that Oregon can't afford a loss, it's probably more likely that they do have a loss.
All right, moving down your sheet. Looks like we've got some action on Minnesota. Ooh, the Tennessee over 58. LSU over 67. Let's get into the SEC a little bit.
Yeah, I'll cover 3 of them. So Tennessee, Georgia, and LSU. So LSU, Florida. Pretty sure Daniels is playing. I know he left with an injury. That would be my biggest concern on that game. LSU went from playing the greatest defense in the world, winning 9 to 10 games back in my high school days, to now they can't win when they score 50. So heavily based on if Daniels plays. I think he left with a concussion last week or whatever, but he had 200 yards passing, 200 rushing. He's a game changer versus Alabama. Tennessee, I think they're starting to get it clicking. It's not quite the Hooker Tennessee. I just think the numbers are a little short. I think they don't stop their opponent. but I think they put the pressure on the opponent to push the scoring opportunities, whether or not they actually score. Another thing, Georgia, we touched on a little earlier. I think Georgia does control the clock, but Ole Miss can't stop them worth a damn. They get to that point. Ole Miss pushes the clock. Ole Miss still can score, and that's why I'm on the total going over on that game. I can keep going, or do you want to? I'll tell you what, I'll keep going. So Minnesota versus Purdue.
You have them Minnesota +1, right?
+1. I think it's +2.5 now. So I'm on the wrong side. So Minnesota does what Minnesota does. They're a very, very poor Iowa team. I don't know. Purdue's getting love because they're at home or because they scored a touchdown against Michigan. Not quite sure the love. I could be very wrong on that, but I know what I get with Minnesota. Purdue, not a chance. So that's where I lay with that. And then Fresno. Again, I know what I get with Fresno State. They've got a decent quarterback. I don't know his name because I spoke of it wrong last week. Again, I'm a 1.5 on the wrong side on this. I just think it's a buyback opportunity. Fresno just beat Boise State. San Jose State's not a bad team. I just think Fresno's better. They just happen to be on the road. But have at it, public.
Yeah, betting public, you got Fresno as well.
Do I?
Well, maybe you listed it for Zesty. You got Fresno.
Yeah.
You also you've got listed Oklahoma and Ohio State that we haven't touched on. Ohio State's got 31, Michigan State.
No.
And then is Miami?
And Georgia Tech.
is Michigan. No, I don't have strong feelings on the Fresno State game. LSU, the over 67. I'm willing to lay the 14.5 points with the Tigers as well. My thinking being that they kick some ass. Unfortunately, my Gators are just not in very good shape this year, and the prospect of going into LSU under the lights is not very exciting to me. Call it a reverse jinx, I guess, if you want, but I've seen enough of Florida play this year to know that they are going to struggle. So that's kind of where I land there. In terms of OU, I think this is a bounce back game for them. They need to get back on track, and I think West Virginia has just been a little bit inflated of recent. Last week they looked excellent, but that was against a BYU quarterback that has never made a start for his life. So not a lot to learn there, and I think that what you see is Oklahoma does pretty well against them. 11.5 points, not a lot again in college football relative to the pace of play, and then sticking in, I guess, the middle of the country there, just a little further north. I like Indiana. plus 6.5. They've been showing signs of life lately, and I think they're able to overcome what is a rather shitty Illinois team, even on the road. So I like them. And then Georgia Tech. I've been following Georgia Tech recently, and I was kind of sad I didn't put it on the sheets. Of course, hindsight's 2020, but it just felt like such a trap with them being a +2 dog against I forget who it was right after they beat North Carolina, which I would have taken them. They ended up covering way easily, and I think Georgia Tech +14 this week against Clemson just ends up looking really good in the end. So. That's where I come out on the old college boys, but as we know,
Fuck Dabo.
we don't know what's going on in each of these little towns. So all I know is fuck Dabo. That's right.
And there was one NFL pick that we left out. I forgot to mention that you also had listed the Monday night game, Buffalo Bills under 46.5.
Yeah, that's back over to me again. Bills under 46.5. That is mainly on a couple things here. One, primetime game. Those tend to play a little bit closer to the vest. 46.5 is a lot of points for a really bad Broncos team and a mediocre Bills team. Where you could convince me that this hits the over is the Bills facing that very mediocre Broncos defense are able to get things clicking on offense. And then because of that, don't really care about giving up 17 points or so to Denver because they've dropped 35 on them. But I think Denver actually plays enough defense in this game to keep it close, and then that leads itself to the under. So that's where my thinking lies there.
Yeah, so it's supposed to snow in Denver, and I don't know if Buffalo knows how to play in the snow. So
It's in Buffalo, isn't it?
does it matter? Both of them know how to play in the snow, but I'm pretty sure it's in Denver.
I believe that was the sarcasm.
Well, all I know is
Yeah. To close out, I do like the Georgia Tech. I'm a sicko that's been betting them for a minute. Georgia Tech's my the opposite of what North Carolina was until they beat them. Now they're my boys. Indiana, I like the coach. Illinois is now, yeah, I bet on them early, bet against them late. So I don't know what to say. Illinois is fighting their betting against the spread ways. And then Ohio State minus 31. That's like 90, at least 88+% of the bets. Typically doesn't bode well, as Michigan versus Purdue last week.
so close to hitting. But that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll wrap us up. I'm a Texas homer. I think Texas covers the 12.5 versus TCU this week. We didn't really touch on that. Don't need to. But if anyone has any thoughts, I also like Miami to cover 14 against Florida State. Florida State's for real. I don't think it's anything more than me just feeling, again, like it's late season strangeness. And Miami has, it's like Miami's coming into this game just trying to salvage a season, like make themselves look like they're worth the shit at all. That's kind of the only thing I see playing there.
Miami had 3 points.
The only way they keep that close is them being way more focused in this game than Florida State. You know what I mean?
Miami had 3 points against NC State last week. I
There's
get
another
it.
reason why I feel like they might pull their heads out, but we'll see. Public, you ready to wrap this thing up? Zesty, you feel good about it? Week 10, we covered a lot of it.
Week 10, anonymous betting public, bringing it to you hot. Big Zest.
Yeah.
Probably going to win you a lot more money, though.
Yeah. Catch me on the NBA in-play tournament. I'm really intrigued about it.
Ooh.
Yeah. I know all the ins and outs about it, so DM me about it.
Yeah.
You're the
I'm
only one.
I'm about to hand over the X controls to the group, so we'll get really social. We'll take it easy, fellas.
Bet Jokic over everything every night and you'll win money. But take it easy, guys.
NBA hot take right there.